Welcome to the Useful Podcast.
Thank
I
you.
call it useful because it's useful for you, useful for me, and useful for the listener. So
Awesome.
useful in every angle. So it is your story told your way. So you can say it however you want. Just for a bit of an intro for our listeners, I guess, Dr. Ash is also, he's graduated from dental school. I guess you're a practicing dentist and you are also serial entrepreneur, currently working in both the crypto and medical space.
hmm
And yeah. So before I start about any of our topic, I'm kind of curious what got you into this kind of dual lifestyle of both one side of both crypto and the other side is kind of like a dentist medical school. And that's a whole different aspect of life, right?
Yeah. So Ash is fine, by the way. I do practice dentistry at a limited capacity right now. I'm full-time building Bitcoin credit services with my co-founder, so I'm a co-founder there. Basically, the way it all started, I had a friend. I got into dental school in 2016, and one of my good friends, he worked at the bank at the time. I was a branch manager, and he was like, "Dude, you like doing research? I heard about this thing called Ethereum. They're telling me it's like the next Bitcoin. It's a little different." At the time, I didn't know much about Bitcoin. I had no idea what Ethereum was, so I fell in the rabbit hole, and I started digging and digging and digging and doing research. And I was like, I kind of get the concept, but like understanding money for someone that comes from the medical space in general, for people in general, it's like people don't get the idea of money.
So kind
They
of
work
curious what
for it,
this,
you know?
yeah, kind
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
curious what exactly what the rabbit hole was. Was it more like figuring out the technology or was it figuring out like what is money or kind of what was the actual
Yeah,
rabbit hole
like,
you went down?
like first was understanding the concept of money in itself, because we all work for it. We all strive to make more money, but what does making more money really mean? Like people don't get that. So when you get into understanding what makes money valuable, keeps its scarcity, just understanding the concept of finance was something new to me. So I just started about learning about, uh, where does the value for money come from? Then you learn about, like, it used to be backed by gold and it isn't anymore. And then you're like, oh, okay, cool. I understand now. And you're starting to get the idea of what it is. And then I fell on the idea of Bitcoin mining, Ethereum mining. And I was like, okay, what is mining? I've heard of gold mining. So the comparison there was understandable, right? Okay, well, you can mint your own money. So that idea came to me really strong. And I was like, all right, well, I have all summer ahead of me. So my two friends at the time and myself, when I say got into the rabbit hole was, all right, how do we mine Ethereum? How does this work? And when you have zero technology background, I mean, minimally, right? You're playing FIFA on PlayStation and you know how to use a computer, but that's like the extent of it. We had to learn how to basically source GPUs, the types of GPUs, make a rig. So you have to build your own computer, not just one GPU, but like six or eight. And then, doing that, it's a lot of trial and error. And at the time in 2016, 2017, I mean, it wasn't as easy as today to get the information. I mean, yeah, it's not pre-internet area, but you had to go on Reddit, watch these videos done by some Russian guy. Luckily, my dad speaks Russian, so he would like translate the DIY videos for me, and we got these things rolling. Like after I'd say like a month, we had a bunch of rigs. We had literally invested all of our savings, including like my student loans. Like I used it to buy GPUs and like I went all in on this like psycho mode. Then I started
Back in
learning about
2016?
2016 transitioning to 2017, right? And at the same time, obviously, dental school, it's not a joke. You're like 12 classes a semester. But I'd say like it was dental school in school, and you step out strictly crypto and Bitcoin. That's all, and Ethereum. That's all I would learn about, right? And then once I understood the value and the differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum, that's when I kind of started wholeheartedly turning into like a maximalist and focusing on Bitcoin strictly. One thing led to another, kind of sold part of my rigs to a friend who continued doing the business. I continued learning about Bitcoin and crypto in dental school, started evangelizing all my friends. this is how it's going to be. Obviously made some money because we went through a bull run and a bear market. It was my first time. It was a shock. I kept believing, I kept pushing, and 5 years down the road, I had all this knowledge in parallel to dentistry, and I got an opportunity where an investor slash another business person, an entrepreneur, wanted to kind of buy my friend's Ethereum mining facility, the GPUs, and suggested that we start a new venture in building Bitcoin mining facilities for investors. It was the first startup I really got into. I had a bunch of other businesses I tried to do. I was doing like dental disposable products. I did some sales. I got into, everything and anything. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to, yeah, navigate this entrepreneurial life. And eventually the startup in the Bitcoin space went from a small hosting facility in Montreal to a multinational business where we started going to the Bitcoin conferences, and then we had to like bootstrap our way and keep like a tight budget for marketing. And then BD was a big thing, right? You might meet all these people in the space, and I'm like a young dentist at that point going into a completely different space. So you have like this imposter syndrome, obviously, that follows you around until you get super comfortable. And, I've done it all within the Bitcoin mining space, from, thinking out the whole layout for building a hosting facility, from repairing Bitcoin like miners to literally soldering on and off like memory chips and sales. We've had to, eventually travel and expand into like, countries like Paraguay, where, it's a small town, it's the unknown. Like you go there at night, you're like moving hundreds of thousands of machinery for your clients
Yeah.
and setting up these hosting facilities. It was all like a big concentrated journey of learning for me, but that's where I truly started, understanding the greater concept of Bitcoin and what it does for people. Because when you go to these conferences, that's when you're meeting like a variety of professionals from different spaces that literally drop everything to build on Bitcoin. And that's basically, what my goal is I've been building on Bitcoin since, we could say, 2017. And fast forward 2021, that's the first time I really thought about what it takes to spend the value of your Bitcoin in everyday life, right? I don't know how familiar you are with the space, but, you know,
I was
yeah.
actually, yeah, I was actually talking to someone about like one of my primary issues with like spending with Bitcoin is it's an asset class. Like, why would you try to spend an asset class where it's not like a dollar where it's stable? It can go 5% up one day, 5% down another day. So just
Mhm.
spending something like that, wouldn't that be risky overall? And that's why when I heard about your, I guess I can have you explain it.
Yeah, so like the first time I thought about Bitcoin cards or crypto cards was with the previous startup called Monbank, where we were hosting basically people like yourself that own like 5, 10, 20, whatever machines that were generating them revenue in Bitcoin, yet they had these everyday expenses in dollar value, right? And we were like, we got to find a way to give these people the ability to spend from their Bitcoin. So, you start looking to the compliance side of things. That's actually where I met my co-founder Hakap, who used to work at BDO. He was advising us on how to set up a compliant card product, which at the time there wasn't many players in this space. I mean, I'm not going to name any, but most of them got unbanked because the regulatory tailwinds were not in our favor. At the time, it was very complex to work with banks, and it wasn't easy to basically have crypto value in the TradFi space. 2022, 23, we were like kind of still thinking about the idea. I had to step away from the space because of XYZ reasons with the previous startup. I was kind of like just chilling out, dollar cost average investing in Bitcoin, enjoying life in Florida. And then my friend Hakap, who's also my co-founder, well, he's the real founder of BCS, and the CEO, he started like, hey, I think I'm going to start a new project we're going to do the whole crypto credit card thing and we're going to focus on Bitcoin specifically. And I had a lot to learn there because cool, mining is a whole different beast. I knew it pretty well, but then understanding issuer bank relationships, robust backend for security for banking, different go-to-market strategies, distribution strategies, card issuers, how to navigate like which bank you're going to work with, who's going to be, sponsoring the bin for just so much to navigate. And everything was not a given at the time. It was really hard to process and learn all these things for myself. Luckily, the CEO, lots of experience in advising these big companies in the space, especially in the digital asset space. So he had a greater understanding, and I did a lot of reading, sat on a lot of calls with him. And I will tell you this, my friend, in the past 18 months, the
Yeah.
crypto card space has like completely changed. It used to cost a lot of time, money, and effort for a startup or an app or a wallet or
Yeah.
whatever, whoever it is, to launch a card, especially a crypto card. Now, most of everything is white labeled. So you got a bunch of card issuers, namely like, the big ones like Rain, for example. I don't know if you're familiar with them. So
Yeah.
right now,
There's
like it's basically plug and play. You just need to have a proper team. So that's why we've seen like over like 400 cards that are cataloged and categorized at the moment by different people on X that test these cards out. So there's plenty of them, but they all focus on, get your crypto, it's converted or whatever, and you're spending in stable coins, right? So it's a
yeah.
crypto card where you can spend your crypto easily but the whole idea of what you just, what you were just explaining, understanding the fact that people hold Bitcoin because they have conviction that its value is going to grow in the future. So why would I spend for everyday purchases an asset that I believe is going to be maybe double or triple or 10 times the price in like 5 years? And, that's when we really found our moat, I would say, trying to test and see for ourselves. I've had the same problem like, I'd say like for the past 10 years where I held Bitcoin. I held a lot of crypto assets. I never really used crypto cards because the idea of spending Bitcoin or like crypto didn't make sense to me. I just wanted to get more and more and more and more and more of it. Even if you're going to spend Bitcoin, I mean, not all merchants in the world accept Bitcoin, right? It's easy to do P2P transactions, but if you don't have 100 million plus merchants like Visa and MasterCard do that accept Bitcoin payments. So there's this gap between the preferred way of paying for things, which is the credit card for most people, with all the benefits that come with spending with a credit card. You know, the protection, being able to use it, for example, at a hotel for like deposits, rewards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That category, like, they
Yeah.
killed it, right? Credit cards are the way people spend. And then you look at how to spend Bitcoin today, and people have two options. Option A is sell the asset. So you go to an exchange or whatever, or you use a card to sell the asset. So you lose the upside, and there's a tax friction there, right? Because you just sold an asset. So there's
Yeah.
a capital gains tax and whatnot. The other way is to go and borrow against your Bitcoin. That means you're using your Bitcoin as collateral, like you would use gold at a pawn shop to get some money. You use your Bitcoin as collateral, you get fiat to spend, and then you have to manage your loan to value ratio and make sure that, you're paying your interest on time, et cetera, et cetera. So if you go that route, which makes more sense because now you're not selling your Bitcoin, you're keeping your Bitcoin. The journey is pretty complex to get from Bitcoin collateral to car because there's DeFi and now there's Bitcoin DeFi or BTC Fi, which means, you know, you don't have to go to a centralized lender.
So curious what the difference
Yeah.
is. What's the difference between DeFi and like why would you say DeFi versus Bitcoin? Why would there be a difference?
So because DeFi was this decentralized financial space where people built apps and financial products on, let's say like Solana, Ethereum, and these other chains. Bitcoin was never really programmable in the past. Well, it wasn't really. Now, Bitcoin layer ones and layer twos allow for people to build financial applications and products on Bitcoin. So it's the Bitcoin finance space.
So is
It's
this a
just
new
it's
development or
I mean it's not really new. Um, Stags is a big player in this space. There's some other players in this space that are building, well,
yeah,
that allow
kind of
people to build
curious.
these products. Yeah.
Curious why people would choose to build like why would you I mean even you why would you choose to build on Bitcoin versus Ethereum?
Well, let's not get into the whole Bitcoin Ethereum thing because that'll be another a whole other call, I'd say. But I'll tell you this, the demand for Bitcoin spending is real. Not that it's not real for Ethereum and the other cryptos, but let's say like they say what about like maybe 70 million Americans have come in contact with crypto. That's what it's really hard to find those values, exact numbers online, but like 80% plus hold like for them crypto is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? It's the first thing. And you have all these different niches. For example, River is a bank. They got over 3,000 small businesses that hold Bitcoin on their treasury. These people have everyday expenses. They need to do like have proper cash flow management. So that's one thing. Then you got the miners, the operators, people that are simple Bitcoiners. Then you got all
So
of
among
these. Yeah.
yeah, among this, do you have a specific target market or a specific target you really like or you think is wants to adapt more? Yeah.
Well, from the hundreds of interviews we've conducted with like potential angel users, I'd say early market for us would be focused around the BTC-Fi communities, people that already like use their Bitcoin for yield, use their Bitcoin to borrow against their Bitcoin for fiat. Like you know, they use their Bitcoin for basically as a financial tool. Those Bitcoiners are like probably our earliest adopters or will be our earliest adopters. Then we got businesses that are generating significant revenue in Bitcoin that need help for cash flow management, for example, where, they got their Bitcoin in one place, they got a credit card that's powered by the Bitcoin's value that they're not really like selling, and they don't have to time the market perfectly if they want to
So
kind of keep the cash flow.
yeah, just curious to explain, I guess, for listeners and for everyone. Like, just kind of curious for Bitcoin credit services, is this basically how the product works? Is if I deposit Bitcoin as collateral, I can spend it like a regular credit card or regular card on my like phone, Apple Pay. Once I use it,
Yeah.
like it'll
So
borrow against the Bitcoin and yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of like jumped. You were asking me why Bitcoin as opposed to Ethereum. Just gonna get back to that. So Bitcoin backed lending has matured a lot in the last few years. It was driven by like institutional demand at first, like by big companies, people that are trading, miners, they typically don't want to sell their Bitcoin holdings, so they borrow against to buy more machines or build new hosting centers. But we've seen by doing research and by word of mouth that, payment volume growth for people that are spending Bitcoin directly online, for example, has grown a lot. Like you got companies like BitPay and CoinGate. They're saying that the like average transaction size is like over $800 or like 150 euros. So like spending is significant, right? When we look at the two roads one can take to spend their Bitcoin, like I said, one of them was to sell the asset, the other one's to borrow against it. But to get from Bitcoin as a collateral to spending on a card today takes over 50 micro steps. So, people might argue, oh no, you got like, whatever, you got these DeFi products that make it easier. Sure. But the way it would work is, get your Bitcoin. Most of the time you have to like bridge, which means take it off to another chain and then swapping and then finding a platform where you're going to borrow it against it. And then you got to manage your loan in one place. And then you got to take that stable coin that you got against your, like that was the lend, that you borrowed basically stable coin against your collateral. That's Bitcoin. Now you got to take that stable coin, find a card provider. Then you got to find out, maybe have to swap that stable coin into a stable coin that's compatible with the card. So it's just so fragmented and there's too much friction for mainstream like adoption of
And
that spending route.
yeah, based on what you just said, you can't even Like I've tried to go through that process once and I gave up. It was just too confusing, too much. I didn't even use it with Bitcoin. It was just more with another stable coin. I was just curious how the DeFi process works.
Right.
But
So you're saying that, and like I'm telling you, I've had the same issue myself. I actually don't do it. This is why, like, we really, really believe in the product we're building, because if you look at the current market of cards, crypto cards, they just like exploded. You got like hundreds of them on the market right now, and most of them are go-to-market strategy is cashback. It's like, oh, who offers the best cashback? Who has the sexiest card? Who spends most money on marketing to push people to like download it, use it, whatever. But then you look at the spend volume. I mean, I think only a few players are contributing to the spend volume growing. Like, I think June of this year, there was like a 10x increase as opposed to like 2025 and how much money was spent in 1 month through like crypto credit cards. I think it's like 800 million or something. And it goes to show that, yeah, more and more people want to spend on their preferred method of spending, which is a credit card.
isn't this like even with that stat, just thinking like geopolitically, like the way the US has been messing with, I mean they have been messing with their currency, they have been messing with people's access to the currency, which is another thing. So that might be a whole different, especially with what's going on, they might be people in other countries might just be more open to another backed currency, right?
I didn't get your question.
I was more curious, like, do you think it might be a global,
Opportunity?
like a global opportunity more because, globally people who hold Bitcoin would probably not want to spend it right now, or not even to spend it. They would probably want a credit opportunity, and
Yeah, of
people don't
course. This,
trust like the US right now. Oh, that's a big thing
I
that's
mean,
coming
look,
up.
at the end of the day, the merchant is getting paid in US dollars most of the time. Most stable coins
I
right
meant for the
now.
user. I meant, oh, when I say the user of your card.
So yeah, look, the opportunity is global, definitely, right? But as I explained, there's a lot that goes behind issuing a card. If you wanted to do it the compliant way, and this is getting back to the startup space, this is like that. Do you go to market fast, or do you take your time and do it the right way? We've kind of adopted the option where, we do it the right way. We've been studying all these cards coming out way before they came out. I mean, and we've understood that really what we're solving for is abstracting the complexity from Bitcoin collateral to card spending and compressing it all into one flow. So we want to make it as easy as that familiar experience of spending the card. So we want to go and meet users where they are. And if we're able to do that and we deliver, then we're not just unlocking Bitcoin backed spending, really. We're really like shifting the culture where, in a system where like the credit was like stretched in the US household debt like reached trillions of dollars, where people were borrowing unsecured debt. You're like 16 years old, they're like, here's free money, go spend it. Like, that's the current credit culture. It's very focused on spending. But with secured credit, especially by a collateral like Bitcoin, that I mean it keeps growing, bro. Like, I'm not here to convince people that Bitcoin's going anywhere. Like, it is. I believe in it. If you don't believe in it, well, too bad.
Yeah, just wait
But,
for it. Yeah.
the idea is to build a smarter credit culture, especially for the Gen Z, especially for, even us. I'm not Gen Z. I don't even know where I am.
I'm a Gen Z
Maybe,
actually, just at the
whatever.
border.
Okay. Well, the idea is to own first, access spending power with what you own, use the credit with discipline, so borrow with discipline, and repay on time, and keep building. So we want to make a product where the user comes in. Well, we've built a
Yeah.
product, beta on the way, waitlist is open. The idea is going to be the user comes in, deposits Bitcoin collateral, access and unlocks some spending power on a credit card that they can spend globally, manage and track everything in one app, repay, withdraw, spend using Apple Pay and Google Pay, get all the protections and all the benefits you would from your regular credit card, all in one place, powered by Bitcoin collateral. So if you're a person that consistently invests in Bitcoin, let's say you're buying $50 a week, well, that means every week your spending power grows, but your Bitcoin doesn't go anywhere. And when I keep talking about DeFi and BTCFi, there's centralized lending platforms where you got to give up your tokens to get a loan. And then you get a lump sum loan, which means let's say you put $10,000, you get 50% of it as a loan. So you get $5,000 USD to spend. You're already paying the interest on the $5,000. What we're building is kind of a way where you unlock the spending power, but you only borrow as you spend. So you don't need to take a lump sum loan and start paying interest on money you haven't used.
So curious what happens when like the value of Bitcoin itself drops.
Look,
Yeah.
yeah. So typically if you borrow against Bitcoin and the value of Bitcoin drops, there's a certain threshold where your Bitcoin is liquidated. So the actual platform that's lending, they
Okay.
liquidate their Bitcoin, they keep your Bitcoin, you lose your money. What people have to understand is that is higher. There's a higher risk of that happening. A, if you over leverage on your spending. B, if you took a lump sum loan, that means you've maxed out your LTV. That means any movement can cause a higher risk for liquidation. If you had, going back to the $10,000 in Bitcoin as a collateral, let's say you unlocked $5,000 in spending, but only used $300 this week, you've technically just borrowed $300. So if with the fluctuation of Bitcoin, your liquidation risk is much lower because it only applies to the $300 you've borrowed. So it's much easier to top up your collateral and bring that health back to par with what's accepted by your lender,
And
right?
yeah, kind of curious in the other situation, what happens when it goes up?
When it goes up, it's great because then technically, I mean, you could just sell some of the extra value of your Bitcoin and pay back your loan. So you're basically spending money for free if you think about it. It's
That
just
makes
great.
sense.
It's like very similar. I don't know if you're familiar with a home equity line of credit. It's a line of credit backed by the value of your house. If you get a home equity line of credit and the value of your house goes up by 5x, 10x, then it's pretty cool, right? That's why the timing right now, especially when Bitcoin's down over 50% from its all-time high. I mean, it's a pretty smart time to borrow against Bitcoin. And then not spend like crazy, be disciplined. And that's where I'm like talking about the cultural shift. It's just much healthier to borrow against an asset you have long-term conviction with. Borrow in a way where you're not giving up your keys, not your coins, right? So if you're able to do non-custodial borrowing against your Bitcoin, that's what BTC-Fi, that's what DeFi offers, right? Your collateral stays on chain. It's never given to a centralized body. So you're never really giving up your keys to anyone. Yes, you are depositing your collateral on chain, but every single day you can go on your computer and see where your collateral lives because no one is rehypothecating that. So you don't run a risk of, SBF. I don't
Yeah.
even know if that makes sense, but whatever. Like you're not like you're not gonna get to lose your money because you just deposited your collateral and took a loan against your Bitcoin, and now that other platform is just gonna use those funds, that Bitcoin, to get into riskier investment strategies, and now you lost everything. DeFi, it gives you the ability to deposit your collateral on chain, see where it
Yeah.
lives every day, and then borrow against it. Now, what we've done differently, like I said, is abstracting all of the complexity. We basically automated the whole borrowing process. It like walks you through, right? You come in, say, I want to unlock $1,000. It says, cool, deposit $2,000 in Bitcoin. You connect
So
your wallet.
as a user, it would
Yeah,
be like pretty much extremely straightforward. Just deposit whatever until
that's the idea. It's a seamless user experience. Like you're going to be able to spend from your Bitcoin using a credit card all in one place. Manage it, repay it. You know, competitors exist. They just do things a little differently. I don't want to talk about that right now, but whoever is listening, they can go and do their own research. Things are different for cards in the market right now. There's a lot of tokens and tiers, and you need to unlock this many tokens to, you need to deposit this many tokens to unlock this tier, and then you got to take a lump sum loan, etc.
So kind of curious,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, kind of curious what your goal is, or what you're taking. What's your vision behind BCS, or what was the direction you guys wanted to take it?
For me and my co-founder was basically to build a way for us to spend against our Bitcoin. That's easy. But
Yeah.
also at the time when we started, we had a B2B approach, less of a consumer approach, where we can vertically integrate through APIs this Bitcoin secured card into different applications that have already hundreds of thousands of Bitcoiners in that space. So there was that distribution play. In the consumer space, we think there is enough to serve both individuals and small businesses before we make that transition at a later stage into like wider distribution as an API service, right? For other cards to be able to offer Bitcoin secured credit or other wallets to add the card as an off ramp, lending platforms. For example, at the Bitcoin BTC-Fi space, there's a couple of them. They don't have cards. So people can go on their platforms, borrow against their Bitcoins, but they still got to off ramp into another platform, load it on a card before they can spend. So it's like adding a spending solution to their existing stack. But the greater goal is to create this new cultural shift for credit powered by Bitcoin as like the most pristine collateral that exists, according to me and to
That
many
makes
others.
sense. So yeah.
And you know, like we didn't talk about a big portion of the market that this would unlock a lot for. It's like credit thin profiles. So people that have horrible credit, but they have assets. Give you an example. You're an immigrant. My parents are immigrants. You're coming into the US. You have no credit score. Essentially, you know, you have, let's say, $20,000, $10,000. What you're going to be forced to do is either get cash from the bank or get a secured card from the bank, which is similar to what we have, but then you're going to spend from it, right? And then eventually that $10,000 just disappears. If you come in as an immigrant and understand the value of turn that $10,000 in fiat that you had into Bitcoin. Now what you've essentially done is invested into a long-term asset and unlocked 50% of that asset's value available for spend on a credit card that never checked your credit score. Doesn't mean it's KYC. You still gotta like go through the know your customer, right? You gotta put your driver's license and your address. You have to be like, there's compliance behind it. It's like, you can't just, but the idea is unlocking credit for those who have assets, but don't have a credit history. And that would apply also for, you know, Gen Z that have blown up their credit score, can't borrow a single cent money. Banks have been tightening up the ship. Like they don't give out loans to anyone. For example, startups, they have everyday expenses. If they want to operate on Bitcoin, so they're native to Bitcoin, they get paid in Bitcoin, all their operations are in Bitcoin. How do they take care of their expenses in fiat without
So
selling their Bitcoin?
yeah, now I'm curious. Let's dig into this more. Why would a startup want to be native to Bitcoin?
They get funded in Bitcoin, but they're selling merch and they prefer to get paid in Bitcoin because they believe in the asset.
Is there any specific advantage over? Yeah, I mean, I
It's
was
like
just thinking. Yeah.
you're like basically detaching yourself from the fiat economy, you know. If you gotta like, yeah, I mean, look, you can get paid in fiat and then go buy Bitcoin for sure. And I'm sure like if you're like I'd say like if you're a Bitcoin miner, then you're mining Bitcoin. Bitcoin's what you're getting paid in. But let's say you're selling merch, you're selling Bitcoin merch. You obviously have the ability to get paid in Bitcoin because you just like I don't know, you enabled Lightning payments and you can accept Bitcoin as a form of payment on your website. Cool. Not everyone's going to pay in Bitcoin, but you're going to still get paid in Bitcoin. Either you're going to like convert that into fiat or not. I mean, that would be an issue because then if you convert it into fiat, then you're paying taxes. There's a tax friction because you're selling an asset again. But taking a loan against an asset is not a taxable event. There's that advantage. So if you're a Bitcoin startup operating on Bitcoin or native to Bitcoin,
What
you don't
about for
have to sell your Bitcoin.
yeah, what about I guess I'm thinking a traditional startup or
Okay.
let's just yeah, why would
Like
they
the advantage for a traditional startup to
yeah,
completely like
because
go
I mean, I
full
personally, I
Bitcoin.
don't. Yeah, I don't believe in the U.S. I don't believe in. I mean, USD. I don't believe in the currency in general. So I'm curious, what would be the advantage of someone like me to, go full Bitcoin native for a business?
You're holding an asset that you believe is going to grow in value. That's safer to hold because you can hold it in a cold wallet as opposed to like trusting the bank with your money. So access to your banking. If you're, if you're basically buying and selling, let's say you're doing you're buying and selling products multinationally. It's a Sunday. Someone calls you, one of your supplier calls you from Bangladesh and says, "Hey, dude, I got a container full of combs, and I'm giving you 50% off, but you got to pay me today." If you had all your money parked at the bank, what are you gonna do on Sunday? But if you have Bitcoin, you can transact within minutes for like fractions of a dollar or cents. You know what I mean? So there's that. It's but basically whether you're a startup or an individual or a small business or anyone, it's the same advantages that exists for switching your life around and living off of Bitcoin as opposed to fiat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, is it more like an off the grid type of?
It doesn't need to be, right? Like, there's the really hardcore people that are like, all right, I have 14 cold wallets. No one knows those wallets are mine. And like, I'm never going to spend my Bitcoin. I'll never get the BCS card because I don't want to put my driver's license in my ID. And
It's too late at this point. Don't you have to put your driver's license on any Bitcoin you buy now? Okay, yes, yes, you can obtain it. That's what you mean. Yeah, I edit them. Don't worry. I post edit. Don't worry. That's why I was like free to ask whatever you want, and then we can post edit. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and it gave clarity. And part of what we're trying to do is also get your face out to the world as well to see like your personality, your face behind BCS. Because I mean, one, I can explain your product, but I think it's much easier when the founder or like the person building it actually explains why they did certain things, why their belief is. And I think that passion will show out definitely to anyone who's listening. That's the dream state. A real crypto card. Let's put it that way. That's a real crypto card. Yes, it's good. Yeah, I do just have to get going. I would be happy to schedule another call just to have something right at 7. Yeah, that would be, I can send you either the transcript and you can tell me if there's certain things you want off, or I can give you like what we plan to post and then we can go from there. Sounds good. I mean, I was trying to go for your July 4th, but honestly, at this point, editing is such a struggle. So it might be a bit pushed. When I have like a bunch of videos scheduled, so it's just editing. Sounds good. Thanks, Ash. Nice meeting you. Bye.